Hi, and welcome to our chat with Tanya today from Graduate FOG and the Good and Fair Employers Club. She's brought out a new book, and we're dying to find out a little bit more about it. So first of all, for those who don't know me, my name's Dan Hawes, and I head up the team behind Graduate Recruitment Bureau, and we also launched Graduate Mentor back in August 2020. Mainly to mitigate the effects of the pandemic for students and graduates. And we have had many sessions, and we're looking to help as many graduating students this year as well. So we have got Tanya with us for probably around 20 minutes. She's kindly offered to share some insights from her very comprehensive book. More details in a second. So first of all, welcome, Tanya. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. We've known each other for maybe about 10 years or so, and we've met over the years. We kind of move in the same circles. And I certainly noticed when Graduate FOG was launched back in 2010, that made a big noise, and you were very focused on bringing together recruiters and more recently campaigning, I guess, for employers to be, exposed for not paying for interns and things like this, and really driving that campaign forward, which I think is a wonderful thing. And we keep hearing lots and lots of employers joining you on your mission. So that's great. And more recently, your Good and Fair Employers Club, which is growing from strength to strength. So you're a graduate yourself, a journalist by training, but you've since gone on to create these two wonderful businesses. So really pleased that you're here to share some of your insights from your book. So it's coming up to the summer. A lot of students will be starting to think about starting their career, big scary word. And your book is really comprehensive, and having read through it, one of the senses I got is you've certainly taken away that fear factor. How did you get all this brilliant information together?
I think it's really interesting you talk about the fear factor and the sort of scariness of it. I'm assuming when you say the word career, that's kind of part of where the scariness comes from. I agree there's a lot of kind of mist around the whole thing, hence Graduate FOG. I think I would like the word career to be banished, particularly from kind of the sort of early start of people's kind of entry into the world of work. I think the word itself, career, has got very negative connotations. I'd like to think about like futures and future paths and more that kind of concept. So I would love the whole world of careers advice to be completely renamed and completely rethought, because I agree. I think it's very daunting for people taking their first steps out of education. I think there's lots of reasons why it kind of seems scary. One of which is if you've only ever known education and you've gone straight from school or college to uni and now you're graduating, you're very used to having a life where everything is very structured for you and every next step is very laid out for you. Yeah. And so I think quite often when I meet graduates, and you probably find the same thing, Dan, they are kind of looking for some sort of certainty. That's pretty much all they want quite often, like to know what's happening, what the next step is. It doesn't help that everybody's suddenly asking you exactly that question. So your parents and everyone you meet at every single party or whatever, like everyone you meet go, oh, well, what are you doing next? And if you haven't got a plan, I think that's a really daunting moment. I've always written for that group that don't have a plan, because that was me when I graduated. So I graduated from Durham in 2000. I'm 41. And I certainly had no idea what to do next. So I was always interested in all those people who had, a good degree and they were smart and they kind of had some idea what they were good at, but that was kind of about as far as they'd got. I'm interested in the people that didn't go to the University Careers Services. For whatever reason, it either didn't appeal or they went in and thought, oh my God, and walked straight out again. Those are my people. So I've written books for them, basically using my journalism background. So I used to write for Grazia and Glamour and Cosmo and those sorts of people. I used to write funny dating stuff, actually, and kind of funny, silly stunt features and stuff. But then I moved into writing about jobs and careers. And I was really interested in the idea of actually, if you can actually break anything down and make it accessible to a young audience, just like you need to like de-boring a subject. And you can do that with any subject if you're good enough. Like it's not that hard. So what I did when I launched Graduate Fog, I actually launched it as, I thought it was going to be straightforward careers advice, but what took off very, very quickly was the blog, particularly, as you mentioned, naming and shaming big firms that had unpaid interns and famous people. So Tony Blair and Simon Cowell and Philip Green and Vivienne Westwood and Boris Johnson. Yes, indeed. And that was a kind of way in to make the world of careers kind of relevant, because it is relevant, and it's interesting, and stuff's happening. Lots of stuff's happening that shouldn't be happening. So as a way in to getting young people to sort of think about why this topic is not just like a boring subject about careers and jobs. It's actually all about kind of getting experience and internships. And so it relates to the real world. So I was always really interested in kind of setting it in context, if you like. So, I mean, the latest bit of de-scaring the subject is that now you've got a pandemic as a backdrop to what was already quite a daunting task. So I really hope that what I've done with the book, which by the way I have here, I wanted it to be a really cheerful colour. I just wanted to sort of to take out that whole panic. And although we'd never had a pandemic before, I have seen, as you have, the job market in various states of ups and downs over the last kind of 10 to 12 years. And the previous version of this book was how to get a graduate job in a recession. So I've just changed recession to pandemic, but I did have to rewrite the whole book as well. But to sort of, but you can certainly see that similar sorts of rules apply. And there's never a situation where getting into a panic is a good plan, as far as I can see. So the book talks an awful lot about the kind of mental and psychological aspect of job hunting and the challenge that graduates are facing now. And it's for the class of 2020 and the class of 2021. And actually previously, if you're still knocking around and haven't quite found what you're doing yet.
Yeah, brilliant. And like you say, a lot of graduates, they just need reassurance to take that first step. And you talked about, it's psychologically you can get quite wound up about the whole process and what your friends are doing and the kind of job, will you get that straight away? You're creating all of this pressure on yourself when you're a graduate with fantastic skill set that employers want. The situation right now is tricky, there's no two ways about it, but you have to think a bit more creative and maybe laterally, and some of the advice is very much along those lines, introducing ideas that a lot of graduates might not be aware of. So if I'm a graduating student and I'm about to enter the jobs market, what are you sensing right now? What's it like for graduate job seekers or those seeking internships or placements, that kind of thing? What's it like?
I think there's an awful lot of chatter about how unlucky this set of graduates are and how the timing's pretty bad. This is the first, the first group ever to have graduated into a pandemic, or the aftermath, hopefully, of the pandemic. So I think that there are legitimate concerns about that. The job market is very weird, and it's going to continue to be quite weird. And so you've got that to navigate on top of whatever you thought you might be doing if there hadn't been a pandemic. So there's an awful lot going on. And I think I hope it's not got to kind of levels of hysteria, but I do hear an awful lot of that kind of emotional, what I kind of call emotional spaghetti, which is like, oh my God, and I spent all this money on a degree, and it's really stressful, and there aren't enough internships, and nobody wants to hire graduates, and no one's got any money, and a lot of that stuff, as you and I know from talking to employers, there's an awful lot in that that's not quite true. And also, I think you have to find a way to sort of tune out all of that noise. So it just becomes about, you can't, your task is not to find all of your friends a job. They're all doing their own thing. You've just got to focus on what you're doing. And you're not necessarily looking for a career for life. You're looking for something to do for possibly just the next 6 months. It may be as short as that. So we'll sort of see how that goes. So to sort of reframe that you're not necessarily looking for what you want to do with the rest of your life. Not that actually people were doing that before even either. So some of the same old rules apply, which is that actually it was always a ridiculous question to ask people aged 21, 22 what they wanted to do for the rest of their lives. I mean, that was the case when I graduated and when you graduated. It's like, that's an insane question. It's even more insane now because the job market is changing. The world is changing so fast that probably the job that you start doing when you're 21 or 22, probably won't exist in like 10 years time, let alone in 40 years time. So I talk a lot in the book about learning to kind of navigate your way. So thinking in terms of direction rather than destination, particularly if you're one of the graduates who doesn't quite know what you want to do, I think you can actually turn that flexibility to your advantage. So it may be okay not to know exactly what you're going to be doing and to make peace with that and kind of get into a rhythm with that rather than panic and think you've got to find something and know what you want to do with your life, because that hasn't been true for a long time. And it's certainly not true now. You're better off being flexible, actually.
Yeah, flexibility, just making a first step in the right direction, not panicking, taking the first job. And like you say, it's still a big ask. A graduate leaving university, what do you want to do? You might have several different careers in your lifetime. So yeah, we just need to park that kind of question to the side, and it opens up so many more options for a graduate. So perhaps you could talk about 3 of your top tips then for graduates entering the jobs market right now.
Okay, so the first one would obviously be, please download the book. It's actually free. So as an ebook, it's free for all graduates to download from Graduate Fog, which is my website, graduatefog.co.uk. I'm not selling it because it's free. And I have made it free by getting sponsorship for you, because I really wanted it to be free for all graduates to download. So it's been sponsored by Vodafone, EY, Accenture and Santander, who've all very kindly put their hands in their pockets to create this book so that you guys can have it for free. I did that because I wanted it to be free for you. So you're welcome. So please take it. So that's a really, really good start, particularly, as I say, if you're one of those grads who doesn't know what you want to do. I think the next thing to do is all part of this. Don't panic and research. Make sure you research what actually are you doing here. So don't just panic and start applying for random stuff and then getting more and more kind of downhearted because you're not hearing anything back. You're probably not hearing anything back because you don't really understand what you're applying for, and your applications probably as a result aren't very good. So actually just take a breath and just think about what you're actually doing next. So again, the book can really, really help with that, because I think what I find really happens every year, that you always see these stories on BBC News or whatever saying, 500 graduates apply for every job, and everyone goes, oh my God, that's awful. There's 499 people competing with me for this job. Yeah. And it's like, what are you even applying for? You didn't even want that job anyway. And half of those people just kind of wrote in randomly, not even knowing what it was either. So I think all of that stuff is not very helpful. So to really pinpoint much more clearly, what is it that you're looking for, so that everything you do is kind of razor sharp focus. Then I think there's also, what grads don't realize is there's an awful lot of different ways of job hunting. So one of them involves recruitment agencies like yourselves, which is excellent ways to kind of get a sort of bit more focused on what you're doing. However, and then there's job boards. But I actually talk a lot about sort of running alongside that in parallel, lots of networking and lots of sort of use of mentors, which is actually my third point. So as a brilliant way to research the market, that involves talking to people, actually talking to actual people. So I go to an awful lot of kind of virtual events. There's loads of virtual stuff online, and quite often there's a panel of people, aren't there? And quite often I look them up on LinkedIn afterwards, and then I say hi and what I'm doing, and do they want to join my club, or are they interested in any of the campaign work I'm doing? And that works the exact same way for graduates. So you can just start kind of approaching people in that way. Don't be weird about it, but just be kind of nice and kind of enthusiastic and say, I've really enjoyed your points about X, Y, and Z. It'd be great to have, if you've got time for a virtual coffee, I'd love to hear from you. And then how to sort of prepare for those meetings. Actually, I'm interested in the stuff that you're doing, all the sort of mentoring platform you've got going. And I wondered what sort of tips you give. I know you connect mentors and mentees, don't you? How does that work exactly?
Yes. So we have over 100 mentors on the platform. Very senior business people who've kindly volunteered, and they're from organizations like Facebook, MasterCard, Royal Ordnance Survey, Coca-Cola, and lots of other companies. So they're all there. They have their own profile. So when you visit the platform, you can identify who's the right person for you, for the kind of career and the sector that you're looking to get into. And then you just click on a day and a time. That then sends your request over to them. They'll reply, and you set up a meeting using Zoom or Teams or Skype. So it's been absolutely brilliant. We've had over 600 sessions, lots of success stories, from, just basic giving someone reassurance, getting them out of a negative mindset, all the way through to actually offering them a job. So
wow.
in a small way, we are mitigating the effects of the pandemic on this year's graduating students, and hopefully we're going to sustain this and help future generations as well. So it's very straightforward to use, and building those connections is equally important as you're starting out in your career. So it's a wonderful platform, and we're looking to grow it and reach more and more students.
I think that's really nice. So the mentors that do it have no reason to want to help graduates other than that they want to be helpful, right? Because I think that's really lovely, and I think that helps to give graduates a sense that it's not like everyone's just kind of sitting in their jobs going, no more graduates, we don't need any young people, and we're just getting on with our stuff and just not interested. I think it's easy for graduates to miss how much goodwill there is out there, or to not sense it or not see it and not feel it. So things like that, and my ebook being sponsored by these big firms, and actually they're running a huge number of sort of kind of skills and confidence workshops and things like that, all for free. And they're doing that because they want to be really useful, and they understand that this is a really weird time for graduates. And I think there's a sort of myth about them kind of pulling up the drawbridge and not having any money. I think actually plenty of them have got plenty of money, and there was never a problem with money. I think the fact that some of the internships, by which I mean, they're big internships, not the rubbishy unpaid ones that I campaign against, but those kind of big corporate internships, I think a lot of them got kind of binned in the summer last year, but it wasn't because of money. It was because they didn't have time to kind of virtualize something that was a really cool, month of or week of, really good training, and experience. They didn't have time to transport that into some kind of virtual sense. They just binned them because they just thought, oh, we can't make them really good because we haven't got time. But it wasn't really about money, and it's still not really about money. I think those employers have made mistakes from the last recession, which you and I remember, where they froze all their graduate recruitment, and boy, did they pay the price for that, because you end up with a gap in your company from that missing year, which is half the size that it should have been, and actually you pay the price for that. So there's a real false economy from their perspective. So I think it's about not listening to those sort of nagging voices in your head going, oh, nobody wants me, nobody wants graduates, and all of that, because it's just not true. I think big businesses, small businesses, everybody will always need young people. They need your energy, they need your ideas, they need you to do the stuff that they don't want to do, frankly, or that they're kind of overqualified for. They all need those young people. This is the future of their company.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, their succession plans are based on hiring new talent every year and then training them up and getting them to very senior positions. So, like you say, employers of all shapes and sizes will always need graduates, and even if they can't offer jobs, they will be doing other initiatives to engage with students and graduates. And that's what you found with your book, and that's what we found at Graduate Mentor. So we've spoken to a lot of employers, and they felt a moral duty to help out actually, and not let this generation of potential lost Einsteins, let's say, go to waste. So we've got some wonderful talent in this country, and thankfully most employers appreciate that and are going the extra mile. Once you've made connections with a business person, that can really open doors. And this leads into my final point about how to find these jobs that aren't advertised. This hidden job sector, I suppose, that go under the radar for a lot of graduates. I mean, what advice can you give about that particular strategy, finding those hidden jobs?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff in the book about this. because I think there's this myth that all jobs are advertised or they have to be advertised by law or something. There's no law that says you have to advertise jobs at all. That's just a complete myth. I mean, there's some industries where most jobs are advertised and need to be. Something like National Health Service will always have to advertise everything. I think public sector, you'll know more about this than me, but I think public sector are much tougher on it, but private sector, not so much. So there's a lot of stuff going on which you're not hearing about if you're just looking at job boards, frankly. And I think that's where the networking piece comes in, and where doing proper research is helpful as well. Because I think, there are lots of companies that have had a really tough year. There are lots of companies who've had a really good year, and actually they're getting tons of press, media attention. So you should be reading about all those companies that are doing really well, with the CEOs in the Guardian or whatever you read, and they're talking about how their business has done really well. There's nothing to stop you from looking up that company and sending them your CV, saying, I read about your thing in the Guardian, I was really inspired by what you're doing, here's my CV if you need any help. This is, I'd love to work for you. It sounds great. I mean, I'm not saying this works every time, but even if it works 1 in every 10 times, and it's only, and there is a role, they need somebody for a month or 2 months, or it might turn into something, you're suddenly the only person in line for it, because it wasn't a job. And they were like, oh, actually, it's really great timing. It's only got to land in someone's inbox on the right day, and you're on, and you could start tomorrow. So I think you have to kind of have that sort of mindset. So also the mentoring thing, I think, works really well, because I think when a mentor meets a young person and thinks, oh, there's something about them that I really like, they're really smart, they were really prepared for the conversation, they asked me 3 really great questions, they kept in touch afterwards, they wrote to thank me, I've heard from them a couple of times since, then you don't have to say to them, do you know any jobs? Because they're already thinking, I really want to help this person, who do I know that might want to use them? Or it's like, so you kind of, just by being good, being prepared for those sessions, I think is the best advert you've got for yourself. And then they will start thinking, oh, maybe I could use this person. Actually, I've got that project coming up. Maybe they could help me with that, or they could be an assistant, or let's give them a go because I like them. So that is your chance really to kind of impress them. And I think the best way to impress them is actually by being really prepared. I think it's really tempting to sort of flop onto somebody, especially when you're not feeling great about your search yourself, and you're like, oh, nothing's working, I don't know what I want to do, and it's a nightmare, and it's really tough. They don't actually want to hear all that stuff. So you need to be quite grown up about this and a bit professional, and put that to one side and prepare properly. They don't want to hear all the emotional spaghetti. Move it. That's not their problem. That's your problem. And actually that will sort of disintegrate as you become more organized with your job hunt. That's another thing I talk about in the book, is actually the best way for your confidence to grow is to get really organized with what you're doing. And then you start to see what's working, and then you stop doing what's not working and do more of what is working. And guess what? You start to feel better about everything. So it's a kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing. But I think when you're talking to people, whether you think of them as a mentor or whether it's just someone you've contacted on LinkedIn who's just said yes to a virtual coffee, if they've given you 20 minutes, it's up to you to be really prepared for that and have your 3 questions ready. Say, I've got 3 questions for you. Have you got 20 minutes? They say yes. You think, great. You send them your CV in advance. Hope they've got a chance to look at it. If they haven't, you give them, 2 minutes at the start about who you are and what you're looking for. Then you ask them 3 questions. And one of those questions is, what would you do if you were me?
Yeah.
And then you really, really listen to that, and you make notes on everything they said. You write down everything they said during the call, and everything you think about after the call, write it all down. And suddenly you've got this really rich load of information to kind of pull apart and go, I hadn't thought about that. That's really interesting. And it's different for different sectors. And I'm not an expert on every sector. I don't go into, the book is not about an A to Z, from accounting to zookeeper. I don't know how to get into some of these sectors any better than you do. But your research and the skills that you have learned from your degree are going to come in really handy, because your next dissertation, if you like, is how to work out what you want to do for the next year or so, and then how to get that job, and then to get that job. So that's your task. So if you can sort of remove all of that emotional bit and just focus on the practical task, I mean, the emotional bit will still be over here at the side, and all those voices are chattering away, but just let them be there and just keep pushing on with what you're doing. And once you start seeing some results, you start hearing back from people, you start getting interview requests, you start, getting invited, getting further and further in with the process. And actually, finally, you'll get offered something eventually. But it may not be exactly what you're expecting at the start, but you know, just kind of go with that. I think being flexible is actually a really good thing right now.
Yeah, definitely. Being flexible, having a plan, and not giving up. You've got to keep moving forward, and things will happen eventually. And you touched on there about speculative applications. Now, applying to a company that may not have jobs advertised on their website, but they're all over the Times the day before about a new project they've just landed. Chances are they might need more people. So you can just apply, try and find the person on LinkedIn, send them a message, and who knows, they might want to interview. I've seen it happen before, and even if it only happens 1 out of 10 times, it's those odds are pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I think. And also I'd say apply for companies you haven't heard of as well, because lots of people just apply for the big names. But actually, there's tons and tons and tons of companies, most of which you haven't heard of. And if you haven't heard of them, then other graduates haven't heard of them either. And so they'll just get fewer applications. So already, I love those chances. And then you find out it's actually the parent company of all of these kind of smaller companies which you have heard of, and you think, ooh, I'm actually in at the top rung here, and realize, so just because you haven't heard of a company doesn't mean they're a nobody, and doesn't mean that wouldn't be a brilliant place to start your, dare I say it, career.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Even though we don't like that word.
We don't like that word, but sometimes, you find out that it is your career. But it does take some effort, and certainly the practical advice you've given and some of the creative angles that you can approach this can really make things happen. So I'm delighted this book is available. We will put this on our website with the link to download the PDF. It is free. That's absolutely brilliant. And perhaps if anyone wants to follow up with you, they can do so on your website. You're on LinkedIn. You're easy to find. So thank you very much, Tanya, for sharing your insights today with Graduate Mentor.
Thank you.
Cheers.